And it's showtime. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Jane. Happy day. Happy Monday. Welcome to He Said, She Said, They Said, everyone. We've got Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group. Hello. And Andrew Plank with I'm My Own Group.
The Andrew Plank Group. AP, the Plankster.
Yes. Plankster.com. I actually had plankster.ca registered.
Did you?
Yeah, I've let it expire because, it's just not. People used to people call me Plankster as sort of a nickname.
Plankster, the real estater. So how was your week?
Honestly, it was a little slow. The phone seems to be a little bit less ringy lately for me. Everyone has their own, I know everyone has their own little markets within markets, but yeah, it's been a little slower for me, which has been interesting to note that. But I know lots of people are busy out there. We'll look at the stats. It's interesting to see. But how was your week, Jane?
I'm just teasing you a little bit here on the side. The Plankster.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're now she's in the comments. Thanks, Jane. Yes, now it's immortalized.
My week was good. I took an ethics course, which is part of the reason why we chose this topic today. And what else? Oh, so I had some buyers come in from Toronto, Ontario, actually, not Toronto. And they're not the same thing, by the way. You need to tell Torontonians that.
Fair enough.
Anyway, and so we went and viewed a lot of properties, and there's just, as you know, no inventory. And so we were walking along the street, and
for sale by owner?
No.
Or nope.
You're ruining my story. Anyway, and we saw the sign. They had seen the sign like 2 days earlier, and then it was tucked in by the garage. So I looked at it and I was like, huh. So I called the agent up and I said, hey, do you want to let us see the property? And he's like, well, I don't know where the sellers are. I'm like, they just drove in. So anyway, they left again. And so we were there with with the kids. Sorry, somebody's texting me. We were there with the two kids. The kids stayed in the car. We FaceTimed them like from 10 feet away. We did the tour of the property, and then we wrote an offer before it went on the market. So we got it.
Good.
We offered over asking, like we gave them a really good offer.
You kind of have to do that because people are waiting to see what they get. So it has to be something they were already anticipating. Yeah, if you're going to get them to nudge on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like your clients your clients didn't have to. They're from Ontario, not Toronto, and they, it's hard to find a home from a distance, and that was a great job. Sometimes, observation is key in this business, just noticing something other people haven't.
Yeah, and they're from Ontario, but they, they've been here before, so they are familiar with the area, and so they knew where they wanted to live and the lifestyle. So I think that really helps. I also talked with somebody on the weekend who actually was watching my Vancouver Island time videos, and so she wants something very specific. And in talking to, like, I find just figuring out what the lifestyle is, because often people have this very narrow focus about what they want.
Yeah, and 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a certain size, and they don't. Yeah, you got to.
And they miss out on stuff.
Yeah.
So it was, So it was interesting to try and orient people, right? What do you do for orientation?
Well, I ask a lot of questions, and try to find out a little bit more about why this is important. Oh, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Okay. 3 bedrooms because they have guests over every once in a while, or they want to have the parents come and stay, or they want a hobby room. Okay. Would an unfinished basement space work? Would it, oh yeah, that's fine. Okay. So 2 bedrooms is all right. Maybe we set up a search that's for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, but I'm keeping an eye open for those things that are wider field. Oh, we really want a really large lot. Okay, great. Why? Oh, we just want our privacy. Okay. What if it was a smaller lot but backed onto a park? Oh, yeah, that's fine.
What if the park had a dog walking path right beside it?
I have a client that they bought a place backing onto a park, and it was great. And then a few years later, the Tony Royal brought in a skate park kind of BMX track right behind the house, like right behind it. So that was cause for a reason to move.
So
But
here's
somebody else might be like, that's perfect for my kids. I
I
want
was
that.
going to say, here's a tip for newer realtors is when you go to the municipality to find out what's happening is go with your client because you can ask more in-depth questions about what's happening. Like, what's the rezoning on, is there any rezoning happening on this? Any applications? What are the plans in this area? What's the official community plan?
Mm-hmm.
Because
And,
early on in my career, I had my clients go. Actually, what I did was early on in my career, I went and I was told like there was going to be 60 feet of forest behind the house. And then I get a call from the agent or from the buyer who was living in the property about a year later. And they go, "Can you come over?" And
there was not 60 feet, was there?
so I come over and they're sitting there with their back to the window and their eyes on me. And I went in and I was like, "Oh my God." There was a house right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, "I could tell from your face you didn't know that was
Mm-hmm.
there." But the thing is that things change. And so now when people say, "Well, that looks like green space there, is that going to stay?" I'm like, you better talk to the city about that because
Yeah, no, I think nothing is set in stone, and especially in Langford. But certainly it helps to go to get these questions answered with your clients so that they witness this as well. Because we, in good faith, can go and gather all kinds of information, but it can be hard to download or convey all of it to a client. And then what is important to them may not be in our awareness. That's why we ask those questions. But there's, you don't know what you don't know. And it's a good opportunity for the people to ask those questions. So, yeah.
And sorry, this wasn't supposed to come up so quickly, but it did. I'm sorry.
So, okay, we're going to just jump into this.
So let's jump into the stats.
Yeah. I wanted to just tell one more story about going to the municipality. The other thing you should do when you go to municipality with your clients is prep them to perhaps not ask certain questions. And I had this happen recently where I was representing a couple, some parties, and then it was a group buy. I think I mentioned this, but one of the folks came along that wasn't my client, and they'd kind of already been through emails conditioned and talked about, like I said, they knew that I was not asking specifically about suites because we knew that there was an illegal suite in that. And he just walked in and point blank said, "Hey, there's a suite in there. Is it legal?" And I was like, "Oh, no, no, don't do this. Don't bring to the municipality's attention that there's a suite in there. We want to ask questions like, what's the zoning for suites? What's allowed to be done there? If we were to put a suite in, what would we have to know?"
Yeah. And so the reason why Andrew's saying that is because we don't own the property. And so we, if we do that, we're reporting something that really we really shouldn't be tattletaling on owner about, right? So he's just saying we have to be very discreet. And also when you sign a listing and you have an illegal suite, there actually is a form that you can sign that allows you to advertise that there is a suite. So where this is important, especially, is in places like Oak Bay, where they will come and actually make you tear your kitchen out.
Yeah. So municipalities tend to be complaints-based enforcement, but you definitely don't want to bring to their attention something that could cause problems either for the current owner or for the future owner. And this goes into ethics, actually, which we'll be talking about later. But the question is, who owns that information, and what's your rights to do? What are your rights to do with it? And that's why that permission that Jane referred to in terms of advertising suites, that's just best practice. It's not that we aren't allowed to or are allowed to. I mean, we can advertise a suite or not, whether it's legal or not. There's nothing illegal about advertising it, but getting your client's acknowledgement that we will be doing that just puts some protection on us, and it brings awareness to the seller that there's a potential issue there. So it's about communication, really.
Yeah. So funny haha story. When I first got into real estate, I had a listing at the corner of Souk and Veterans Memorial Parkway. And I get a call and I have like, sweet. I get a call from the building inspector, and he goes, "Hi, Jane. I just want to tell you, you should take that sign down. Because otherwise I'll be forced to go in there." And I said, okay. So I took it down. And, you also have to understand that the city knows that there are illegal suites. And what Andrew's saying about the complaints, the complaint is usually about parking or noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or traffic, like coming and going.
And safety is a big issue when it comes to suites, so especially illegal suites, which were not necessarily, which wouldn't have been put in with permits. So there's an unknown as to how the quality of the work was done and whether or not the electrical systems in the house can handle it and so forth. But I would say that, many properties that are advertised as having suites have illegal suites. It's not hard for a city to look for those and find them just by going to MLS listings. But they don't want to create problems for their own, population. And we know that there's a housing crisis. So it's not politically, it doesn't make sense to be enforcing every suite that's advertised, but they will have to, follow up on complaints. They have zoning and rules. And if they're not being followed and somebody draws their attention to it, they have to do what they can for their citizens.
Okay, let's get on to the stats. You're right. Okay, so this past week, we've had 256 new listings and 199 went pending. Good news?
Kind of good news, yeah. I mean, I think we've been seeing new listings. This is more new listings than we've been seeing for a while. It's up. I think we were seeing like 230, 216, 230. Now we're 256. I don't know the numbers exactly. I'm kind of, going from memory, but the pendings, there's that's pretty broad difference now, new listing versus pending. So that's interesting to see. It sort of suggests that the supply is overarching the demand.
Yep. And price increase. So I'm finding that the price increase is happening on new construction. And we talked about that last week. And specifically, like what they're doing is relisting, I'm finding too. Because some buyers don't have access. If they're not working with a realtor, they don't have access to the history. So they don't know the history of a property, that maybe it's being relisted again.
Right. At a higher price.
Yeah. So those are the expireds. You can see 8 expired and then 143 changed hands. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I'll do the month to date market stats. So again, these stats, the first column is going to be what's happened so far in the month. The next column was for the full month of 2021 March. So we've got this month so far is 527 unconditional sales compared to 1,173 last year for the full month. So 2/3 of the way through, we're definitely way low for sales. New listings 763 in the 2/3 of a month versus almost double that for a full month, 1,419. My eyesight's not so good. I have to keep sort of getting in closer. Active listings 985 on market, so still under thank you, Jane.
Sorry.
Under 1,000 versus 1,310 last year, and broken record, but of course that's 1,310 was still extremely low versus prior years.
That's why I was thinking that when we do the stats, it's a broken record to us, but it's not necessarily a broken record to other people, right?
Yeah, it depends how often they come in, and it's important sometimes to hear that broken record just to get an understanding of, sometimes you have to hear something more than once.
Like 12 times. Okay, so
Cheryl Nelson made a comment, important to talk to potential buyers about those risks.
Yes. So what she's saying is the risk of having an illegal suite, and the risk is that you may be depending on that income.
Hmm.
And different lenders, of course, do look to see whether or not that income they're going to count it. So
Hmm.
in a suite, they're more likely to count it if it's legal, and if it's illegal, they're less likely. And some don't count it at all. Some 50%, some 100%. So thanks, Cheryl.
Right. Yeah. And if, of course, yeah, if it gets shut down, your income is gone. The other thing I think a lot of people don't know is that there's certain municipalities that allow the owner to occupy the house. That require the owner to occupy the house if it's a house with a suite. So even if the house has a legal suite, in Saanich, for example, technically, you're not supposed to rent the whole house out as an investment property. It's supposed to be owner occupied, and then the suite is considered legal.
Right. And then so there's also a movement now. I mean, we're getting off topic, but there's also a movement towards garden suites. So that would be separate from your house. Yes. And so she's also mentioning Cheryl, who's our star fan, also permitted work. So you have to disclose whether or not anything is permitted or unpermitted. If it's unpermitted, it's called a latent defect. So, and that means that the municipality can come in and tell you to rip it out
Or correct it, yeah.
or correct it. Okay. So we were talking just yesterday. Andrew and I do talk.
Outside of this, yes, we do. What are we going to talk about on Monday? That's what we talk about.
So I took a really good course last week. The instructor was a broker from the mainland, and it was interesting because he started out saying we were doing ethics, and he was started out saying, "Well, I'm a facilitator. You guys are going to be discussing the topics here," and so there was a lot of group going out and coming back. They're changing that course, by the way. So have you taken it? Yeah.
Ethics, of course. Yeah. I mean, these are courses that we're required to take every couple of years as part of our licensing.
Right. So there's different things that we have to take. Actually, I do have that in here. Let me just share screen window. There we go. So we have to take legal update, anti-money laundering in real estate, and ethics for the real estate professional, which is changing. That topic is changing. And then on top of that, we have to take other courses. And I was reviewing them today. So some of them are interesting, like negotiating for the win and all of that.
There's a lot of repeat, I find. After doing this for 15 years, many of the courses repeat, like, condo sales 101 and condo sales, 201 kind of thing. There's there's commercial sales. There's, of course, the ethics is more of we need 18 credits per year, per cycle, every 2-year cycle. Plus there's required courses. So we've got some choices in the courses we can take in terms of electives, but then the requirements are those 3 that Jane mentioned.
Yeah. So one of the things that was mentioned was trust. And so to me, that's totally integral to the whole process. If there's no trust, I mean, okay, think about it this way. When you go and buy a house in another country and they aren't using the same system and you don't understand the system, there's a lack of trust.
Language, right? So yeah, you need to put a lot of trust in the person that is guiding you through this.
So one of the things that people feel there's a trust issue with right now are the number of offers that are coming in actually coming in. And so we have a process for dealing with that. So you are required to keep copies of all of the offers in your files, and you can send them into the brokerage, but you're not supposed to. I don't think. In our office, we just keep them. And then we have to disclose to the sellers every offer, disclosure of remuneration.
Right. And I guess if a buyer's agent is not trusting on that, they could go through their realtor to their managing broker to ask the other managing broker for records of how many offers were there? Can we confirm that you got the proper paperwork and all of the proper disclosures were filled out? Because we were told there were 10 offers, and in fact, maybe there were not. Now, there's a lot of trust in this business, just not necessarily even just between clients and realtors, but realtor to realtor has to have a lot of trust. And so I want to take this a step higher, Jane, before we go into like the pieces of discussion. But let's talk about what are our legislated requirements and what's. So let me get into this. We have, Jane and I are members of the Victoria Real Estate Board. It has its own code of ethics. We have rules and regulations. We have code of ethics we have to adhere to when we're to be members of the Victoria Real Estate Board. We're also members of the BC Real Estate Association, which has its own, again, rules and regulations, code of ethics. We're members of the Canadian Real Estate Association, another level of real estate, and it has its own codes of ethics. There are there's oversight and there are protections, and if we can lose our licenses or at least be kicked out of these organizations for not meeting these. And then, of course, we have the laws of the land. We work under the law of agency, generally speaking, which means that we are really put on there's a mantle that falls on our shoulders that says we have to treat our clients as, their interests as if they were our own. And
put them before our own.
Put them even before our own. So that means that, if my client is interested in a property that I might have personal interest in, I have to let go of that personal interest. It's my client's interests first. And that's the law. This isn't about ethics. This is about the law of agency. But they all kind of intermingle.
Yeah. And so some things may be legal, but they may not be ethical.
Yeah. And this is where agents can get a bad rap, but also maybe it's a problem with the system, maybe it's a problem in society, who knows, but it depends on who's, we find that we get our clients, we work with people that we tend to agree with, or, we tend to, when you get that little tingly, you may not want to work with someone who you feel is going to put you in an awkward spot. But we are legally obligated to follow our clients' lawful instructions to help them buy or sell a property. And if those lawful instructions are legal, but immoral, and they're legal, but immoral, and also maybe come up against the code of ethics of our boards and so on.
We have to walk away.
Yeah, well, we have to walk away, but we have this legal, we've got this legal obligation to follow. So we have to have a conversation. And sometimes you're kind of stuck in this.
Yeah. So sometimes, you're asked to do stuff. You have to explain you have to go through a document called Disclosure of Representation and Trading Services and just explain the fiduciary duties. But often when you're listing a property and the client says, well, I had this problem a number of years ago, but I fixed it. I'm like, how did you fix it? Did you have a professional come in? You need to ask the questions to see whether or not there is a real problem, whether or not it was really fixed. So, like, for example, recently there was a house with a perimeter drain that was fixed by the seller, or the seller had it fixed. Well, it wasn't done professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a latent defect because it wasn't done according to the code and nobody could really examine it.
So how did this so we're speaking about ethics. So how did this play into ethics for the realtors involved?
Actually, I don't think the realtor knew about it until after, but if you do know it, you have to say this was done and it wasn't done by a professional. That's the ethics of there's a conundrum here. The test is if this were to come out in a newspaper and a big headline, do you want to be the realtor who picked the peaches off of the tree in the backyard? Or do you want to be like the person who told your clients, listen, even though there's no one living here, we can't pick those peaches. Right.
Yeah.
Or like, I always say, always disclose because it's always going to come out in the long run. Do you want your neighbors to be the ones to tell the current owners that you were the one digging the trenches around the property. Just say that you did it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, once the information is honestly disclosed, then people can make good decisions around it. There's, speaking of ethics and our duties and so forth, we can't just stick our heads in the sand either. We can't list a property and not do good research, because if it's something, if something another agent would reasonably be expected to do and we don't do it, then we can be held responsible for it. So, from, a professionalism and ethics kind of standpoint, we can't just say, la, 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 I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me this stuff. We're supposed to ask some questions and determine what we can about the property. And if there's something that the client says sort of offhand and it kind of triggers something, maybe we should dig a little deeper to find out. And then if it's going to put us in a conflict, we may have to have a conversation about stepping away if the seller says, no, I do not want to disclose this.
Yeah, and sometimes like a seller may do something without a permit. Like I had a client do a renovation of a kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, listen, he goes, I don't want to tell them. I don't want them to know that I didn't do this with a permit. I said, you have to tell them, because otherwise they're when the buyer comes in and they see that the one side doesn't look like the other side and they just go to the city, they're going to see that you didn't do it with a permit. So just tell them.
And you know what? I don't find that it makes that much of a difference in terms. I don't really find it makes much difference in terms of final price to the seller. I find what it makes a difference is the experience of the buyer. And integrity, experience of the buyer. At the end of the day, it's going to cause problems if information wasn't provided. But in the full light of day, with the information there, people can make better decisions. And I find people are more trusting and about going forward with a property purchase if they feel like everything has been disclosed. Sellers do have the right to cross off a property disclosure statement, not make disclosures if those there's not a requirement to disclose unless there's a material latent defect. So disclosures around something that is absolutely visible and in your face when you're walking through the property doesn't have to be disclosed. But it helps to create a lot of trust if these things are kind of brought to light anyway.
Yeah, and I think for me as a realtor, I can't really I can't represent somebody who isn't going to be honest anyway. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, and
Yeah.
I think I've helped some sellers save their own butts because they've wanted to keep things close and feel, I don't know, like it's
Well,
it's
people are
to this.
primed that way, Jane. I mean, there are people out there that are not trusting in the process. You just gave an example earlier about going to another country and you don't really know what you're getting into. For many people, even local people here, coming to a real estate agent is not something they do often. And so they are coming to a new country in the sense that they haven't, this is a very foreign experience for them. And they don't know if they can or should trust the process. And they've heard many things from society and from news media and so forth that, you have to be careful. Of course, it's not surprising.
There's a great Facebook group, by the way, for anybody who's listening, for realtors, called the Real Estate Pros, and they actually talk about real estate in different countries and what's normal and abnormal. And it's always interesting to me how cut and dried real estate is in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, we're so transparent. And, once you have the accepted offer, here are the next steps. It's not like, you have a lot of things flown at you. In the States, you can have an appraisal done. The appraisal may take months, and then the purchase may not go through. And we're just so cut and dried. It's just an awesome process. Like,
even Victoria versus, for example, a bigger center like Vancouver, here in BC, under the same sets of rules and so forth, different real estate boards, there are some forms and so on that are different. And we've developed and evolved our own sets of forms that I feel are very, 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 very well done and really help to keep everyone kind of on the same page.
Mm-hmm. So
I want to speak a little, there's an example here in terms of that place where we get into a bit of a this moral dilemma.
Yeah.
The gray areas. So, you're working with a buyer and you've been working with them for a while, and maybe you've got a good working relationship overall. You can tell that they're looking for a great deal. They're looking out for their family. They want the best that they can find. And let's say we find a listing and its seller's a little old lady, and they happen to do some digging and find out a little background information. And it doesn't have to be a little old lady, a little old man, whatever. Somebody vulnerable, protected by an agent, but maybe that agent is newer or not very savvy, or is doing more volume and isn't really having their eyes on the prize. And this person says, let's get this for the absolute lowest we can. We know all this information. We can make an offer that can get this property for $100,000, $200,000 under market value, and let's go forward with this. And our job is to do that.
I know exactly what you're saying. And so recently I had a buyer who qualifies to go into low income, like a low income purchase, but has a lot of money, but their income doesn't qualify. So they're like, well, I qualify, and then what I'll do is I'll buy it, and then I'll just pay the loan off, and then then I can rent it out, because you're not allowed to rent it out unless while you're under this current loan program. And so, legally what she's doing is okay. But I said, ethically, I think you need to just think about this, because you're not the client that the development is made for.
Right.
And you might want to rethink this.
How did that one end up? I'm
still working with them. We're looking at a different building.
I see. I mean, in some senses, that's very savvy what they're doing. On another sense, yeah, it's maybe keeping someone else who is maybe more in need from finding or making use of that utility, that tool.
Yeah, and the other thing is sometimes, so another situation that came up in the course is if you've previously had a listing, let's say with a house that had a leaky basement, and then and you said to the seller, I can't, or it didn't sell or whatever, and then they go and they list it with another realtor, and you go in and you see that there's no disclosure about the leaky basement. What do you do?
Well, especially if you're working with buyers who say, I want to write an offer on this property. Because one thing we haven't yet talked too much about is this duty that we have. We talked about agency. Part of agency is a duty of confidentiality. That confidentiality, any information we gather through our relationship with parties remains, in a container. So you're working with someone, you list the property for sale, it's got this problem, or you've found out that there's this problem, and then you're bringing a client through to it, but you have had prior agency with those sellers. You're not allowed to take that information and convey it to the other new buyers, because it's owned by
the other person, the first
person. So it puts you in this really awkward place of like, how do you protect your current buyer? And this might be a place where you have to say, look, I'm bound by confidentiality. I did have a relationship in the past around this. So there's, full disclosure of anything that could affect your client's decisions, but there's certain things I can't tell you about this property. Take that as information that you should probably take very seriously.
So, one time I was showing a property in James Bay, and it was pouring rain out. It was November, and literally the basement was flooding. Like as we were walking into the basement, there was water pouring in the back.
Yep.
And 2 days later, I went in and there was no water. And there was no disclosure.
Yep.
Now, if I had been the listing agent and showing that, I would have had to disclose it. As a buyer agent, I was happy to disclose it, that I had known about it. But if I had been the former listing agent and then brought a buyer in, I would have been in trouble, because they hadn't disclosed it. I couldn't say anything because it was something that it was information that belonged to the seller. So what do? You say, I don't recommend that you buy this property.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why.
Or you schedule a showing during a very heavy rainstorm.
Yeah, but it's a real problem. Like, there's doing things right, and then there's doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, and it definitely following the letter of the law versus the intent of the law, or the intent of ethics, or the intent of, and ultimately, people, everything finds its level. People find the realtor for themselves. They find, everyone's got their own sense. Like I was going to talk to you also about your personal sense of morals and ethics. Like you have your own sense of what's important to you. It may come from spirituality. It may come from, people in your life that you've grown up with, but you've developed it over time. And it's how you relate to the world, and it's how you feel okay being in the world, and how you act in it. So, yeah.
This is why I like working with you, Andrew, because I think you have I think you're really dialed in with what your values are. So, like, if I ever want to talk to somebody and really get good insight, I call Andrew up.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. Platonically, I love you. I have a real estate crush on you.
We thank you. We say we love each other a lot, but it's like brother and sister.
He looks like my brother. Yeah. So anyway, just so I just wanted everybody to understand, because it was a real eye opener. I mean, we had a great course, and this facilitator was amazing, and we're going to see if we can get him in just to speak as a managing broker just about these issues, and that'll be coming up in a few weeks. But it's also, I always say to clients, hiring a realtor is kind of like dating. Like, you really do have to make sure your values align, and your energy aligns, and your vision of where they're going aligns. And same like if you're listing or buying, because if they don't, you can get each other into trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate, like, just this, I'm saying things as they come to me, which is what I tend to do. But if you are a person with whose morals don't align with what we're talking about here today, then you will probably be able to go out and find an agent who may, be more willing to skirt rules, or do things that may not be in alignment. And marriage made in heaven in one sense, but you're also more likely to get yourself in trouble. And the other.
Yeah. Okay. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's, I also find it interesting. Jane and I were talking about this before this week, and before, like, much of our audience appears to be realtors.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny to us, because some of our conversations are very realtor related. I mean, and it's really important, I think, for us all to be part of this discussion. I'd love to hear more from our colleagues and have them step in. We don't mind. I think, Jane, you can speak to this, but we don't mind to hear from other realtors, their thoughts, and get some feedback in this. And to me, that makes this more interesting to the public and to the people we also want to, have hearing our messages. So thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah. And if you guys ever have any questions, or you want any coaching, give us a call. How do they reach you, Andrew?
Please reach out, best to phone or text at 250-360-6106 to reach me directly. For general inquiries, info@andrewplank.com is my email. And then website, andrewplank.com, has useful information. I do have on my blog copies of these shows, and also some video showing a little bit more about how I work and services I can provide you. Jane, let's hear it.
My name is Jane Johnston. My number is 250-744-0775. My email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com. And I have two websites. One is briarhillgroup.com, where we talk about listings and what's going on in the market. And then Vancouver Island Time, where we house these videos. And we have information about neighborhoods in Victoria. Don't forget, everybody, every Monday, we're here at 10 a.m. And if you subscribe, if you missed, you can watch us on YouTube.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the like button. Everybody does that. Everybody does that. Okay, good. And Jane, I love how your radio voice came out. I'm Jane Johnston at 250-744.
I was watching, sorry, I was watching a very cute movie last night, and they talked about this woman having a telephone voice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I have a blog voice or whatever, vlog voice. Anyway, okay, so if you guys have topics that you want to discuss, just message us. We are happy to take them on and do some research. And if you have any questions, talk to Andrew or myself. And anything else? Oh, new listings?
Nothing coming up. I had something coming up that kind of changed. All kinds of stuff's going on in the world and the ether that seems to be having people moving, shifting their priorities. So we'll see what happens.
I have a new listing right now. It's 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's just over 1,000 square feet. No dogs allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And limited rentals. It's on Ptolemy, and it's $549.9, and it is beautifully renovated. And we're looking at offers on Wednesday. It's the owner has left to allow it to be shown. So please, if you want to book a viewing, call your realtor.
Okay, can I just talk about some wants? Because I've got a few things that are, what do I want? I mean, where do I start? So in terms of real estate wants, I mean, I have an active buyer just looking for sort of an entry-level condo, in-suite laundry preferred, under sort of 450,000, which is not a lot in this marketplace, but it's okay to have an older unit, 1-bedroom minimum, must have a balcony. Can be a 55 plus, that's fine. And
are we working with the same buyer?
Maybe. I don't think so, though.
Yeah, me too.
And then I've got a number of buyers for West Shore properties, various conditions, newer spectrum between like newer up to 1.25, I would say, preferably with a suite, or similar configuration, but could be older, and maybe a little less price point as well. So.
Okay, I have a buyer looking for something similar, under 500, downtown Victoria. They want Fairfield, east or west, preferably. So like Linden or whatever, Oscar.
Right.
And they prefer south facing, and they don't care if it's in suite laundry or not. So an older building would be sufficient. Top floor preferred. And I have a set of buyers looking for dog-friendly, 60-pound dog. Really nice dog, friendly condo building. It's so hard to find. So if you know of anything, we've looked at everything on the market, and it's really helpful when realtors put the dog poundage in the strata notes, because oh my god, I've read so many strata bylaws.
Jane, you have a spreadsheet that tracks some of these things as well, right? So,
yes, I do.
Yeah, and this is really useful to keep track of these things because, the buildings, Jane's right, a lot of realtors don't share some of the deeper information that is really, really useful when you're working with a specific size or height or weight of dog. Yeah.
It's funny, when I met with them the very first day, I'm like, that dog thing is going to be your problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, so yeah, and they don't care really about in-suite laundry either, and they do care about bike storage. So.
Yeah. When you're accounting for the cost of you can't put a price on love, right? But when you're accounting for the cost of an animal over the life of its lifespan, you will be paying extra to buy a condo, or if you're looking for a property with a dog allowed, or even a cat, there's sometimes a premium for that, especially a larger dog.
Yeah. Okay. Time to go, buddy. All right. Thank you so much once again. You're awesome. And I've enjoyed our conversation. If you guys have topics you want to discuss, send us a message. See you later.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Check us out Mondays, 10 a.m. Bye.